RFE frequently asked questions. So in this segment, we're going to cover a few of the most frequently asked questions about requests for additional evidence or requests for evidence from USCIS. And so the first question that come up is, should I respond to an RFE? And the answer is absolutely yes. If you don't respond to an RFE, your case will be denied. And so, and that coincides with the second question, which is, what should I do if, what should I do when an RFE comes in? And so typically what you should do is you should read through the RFE. So it's best that you talk to an attorney, but if you don't have that ability, you read through the RFE, you see what the requirements are, and then you go gathering the additional documents that they request. It's more important during this stage of the game that you don't try to fight and make up a reason for why you don't have the document, and try to find either exactly what they need or something similar to what they need. For example, they might not necessarily need an exact document, but they might need, for example, proof of your income. And so there's different documents to show proof of your income. You don't have just one piece. And so gather those documents and then respond back to an RFE within the allowed time limit. It's very important, otherwise your case will be denied. The next question that comes up in the RFE segment is, okay, so I send the RFE back, I send the response to for additional evidence, and now how long will they take to make a decision? So they typically review it, and in this day and age, in about 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, sometimes it could take a little longer, but people often get a decision, or there's a move based on that RFE within a month. Another question that comes up is an RFE, is a request for evidence common, let's say in an H-1B case, which is a work visa? And the answer is, it really depends. Okay, so it depends on how you did your case. And so if you do a bad job, you're more likely to get an RFE than if you did a good job. So if you have everything required, they might not need additional evidence. Now, that being said, if you don't have your packet ready, they will need RFEs from you. They will send you RFEs, and additionally, now they're starting to look at your case in a different light. And so, because what they're seeing is that you don't have what you need, you don't have the requisite documentation. Another question that comes up is, what are the reasons for a request for evidence? And so the reasons really vary, and I can give you some of the most common reasons, but the reasons will vary a lot with the type of petition or application that you have sent. And so a lot of reasons come up. You don't have enough evidence, let's say, of a bona fide marriage or a valid marriage, or you might have, you might need to, for example, there are sometimes cases where you might need an additional sponsor, or you have not proven that you meet the income requirements for sponsorship. There's cases where you haven't provided one form or another, and so these are kind of general reasons why RFEs come up. And then another question that comes up, which gets a little more into the fine details of the law, is what's the difference between an RFE, a request for evidence, and a NOID, or a notice of intent to deny? So an RFE comes up typically in the earlier stages of the game, and it involves it involves kind of the structural issues. So it involves, there's a lack of a form, for example, or there's a lack of some core requirement. A NOID, on the other hand, or notice of intent to deny, what they're saying is that you have the requirements typically, but what we're not seeing is the requisite evidence that we need to make a finding in your favor. We don't have, for example, all the facts, we don't have all the evidence, we don't have all the you know, the documentation that shows, let's say, that you're married, or the documentation that shows that you know, you've cohabitated together, you know, and things like that. So that's a different that's the difference between a NOID and an RFE. And then the other question is, if I did premium processing, so in some types of cases require premium processing, such as an investor visa, treaty investor visa, the question is, how long does it take to receive an RFE notice during premium processing? And the answer to that question is, it takes the same amount of time that it would have taken for you to receive a decision on your case. So typically that's a 2-week time frame, and so you will receive a response within 2 weeks. That's what premium processing means. And so then when you send your RFE back, then they'll probably take an additional week or two to make a determination. And so those are some common frequently asked questions about the request for evidence.